So we have chapter 2, section 1, our political beginnings. Basic concepts of government. The political system that the earliest English settlers knew of and practiced was that of England. It was based off the ideas from the English Bill of Rights in 1689, which in turn was based off of the Magna Carta from 1215. The colonists brought the three ideas of ordered government, limited government, and representative government with them to be used in the shaping of the United States' government.
Ordered government. The colonists saw a need for regulation between one another, so they created local governments. Offices and units of government created by the colonists included the offices of sheriff, coroner, assessor, and justice of the peace, grand jury, counties, and townships, all of which still exist today.
It is a...
It's because of the lighting.
Limited government. Limited government is the concept that the government isn't all-powerful and their power is restricted and that everyone has rights that may not be taken away. In the U.S. today, the federal system delivers a system of checks and balances, which is an example of limited government.
So, are there any questions so far?
Well, like we had just learned the the McCullough versus the Maryland case deals with the fact of limited government, and also in the 10th Amendment, which states where the states and people keep the powers not delegated to the federal government.
So you're saying those two significant pieces of legislation are a reflection of the long history of English jurisprudence on...
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Representative government. And this is the quote that goes by the government of, by, and for the people. Representative government was another concept brought on by the settlers. That the government should serve the will of the people. In a representative government, the people have a voice in what the government should and should not do.
Landmark English documents. Ordered government, limited government, and representative government can be traced to earlier documents such as the Magna Carta, Petition of Right, and the English Bill of Rights.
The Magna Carta. The Magna Carta forced on King John by barons in 1215 granted rights such as trial by jury, due process of law, and protection against taking of life, liberty, and property.
So why was that so significant, that Magna Carta?
Because by then the king himself would handle all the jury. He would give the word. Well, he had the final word, and the people weren't getting fair trials, or they were getting their property taken, or they were stolen or them or the people in the rights. So it basically gave the people rights that they should bear.
Now, when you say the people rights, which people specifically are you talking about?
His barons.
Right. And so it wasn't...
It wasn't everyone.
It wasn't there. It was only the elite. And why was it that he was willing to grant the nobility those few rights outlined in the Magna Carta? Why did he yield? Because before that time, he had absolute authority, unquestioned authority, divine right, absolute rule. Why would he give some of that up to some of the nobles?
He'd rather
Lose a few to gain the law.
yeah, basically.
Lose what though?
He could have
He already had absolute authority. What could cause him to give up any of that?
Losing his people.
Okay, the elites had in a way they had a little bit of power, right? No?
What caused them to? What encouraged him to give them some of these basic rights? There's something he got in exchange. It was quid pro quo. What did he get from them?
Money.
Money. Because of the Crusades, the English coffers, the royal coffers had been significantly drained, and he needed money. And the nobles were like, okay, we'll give you some money, but in exchange, you have to guarantee us. Now, why is that so significant? It didn't apply to the common person, but it set a precedent for what?
For what?
Months later.
Yes. It was the crack in the dam.
And the overall idea was it established the fact that the power of the monarchy wasn't absolute.
Then we got the Petition of Right. The Petition of Right was signed by Charles I in 1628 in order to receive more money from taxes. It demanded the king no longer imprison or punish any person. Oh wait, that's not. Any person without, like,
For a
That's all I
judgment.
drink.
yeah. And insisted the king not impose martial law in time of peace or require homeowners to shelter king's troops without their consent.
So let me ask you this question. If that was part of the Petition of Right, and the English colonists were theoretically, what, British citizens, why during the Revolutionary War were they living in and using just average colonist farms and houses and...
Because they owned it, didn't they?
What's that?
Didn't they own it? They owned
The
it.
Brits didn't own it.
Wait, what was the question?
Didn't they own the 13 colonies
If
at
this was
first?
part of the Petition of Rights, how is it that the king's
Yeah.
troops, when they came over during the Revolutionary War, just went ahead and lived in people's houses, ate their food, used their livestock? If that was part of the Petition of Rights, how'd they get away with that?
It was a time of war.
Okay, maybe it was a time of war. What if I was...
Okay with
This
this?
was after.
What if I hadn't openly opposed the king and he was still allowing his troops to be quartered in my home?
Will you speak up?
They were still subjects of the crown, so the crown had all say-so.
So even though it is a petition, it does outline some rights, it's not totally absolute like we have under the Constitution. Because under the Constitution, is anyone above the law?
No.
Is the President above the law?
No.
Is the Congress above the law?
No.
Is the Supreme Court above the law?
In a way.
The fact that you hesitated scares the bejeebers
No.
out of me.
No.
They should not be above the law.
But they are.
No, they're not.
You see,
If they have to commit a crime, they'll be sent to jail too.
What do you have to say?
come on, Joey.
No, say it. If what?
Out of the government.
No,
Are you trying to say that just because they're in the Supreme Court, that the police might like let it easy on them or something?
No, not in a way. I was just saying, like, in a way, because they're supposed to uphold the Constitution, but yet we see all these times where they're making false, I don't want to say judgments.
Controversial judgments?
Yeah, like such as the Mike Gardner incident, or the Eric Gardner, or the Mike Brown, where, you know, there should be people convicted, or such things should have gone certain ways in which they did not go because of the way that they
The Supreme
judged.
Court ruled?
Yeah,
So you're trying to say like
So,
they get away with some stuff.
So like 1973, Roe v. Wade, they used the 9th and 14th Amendment to justify abortion. That has irritated for decades lots of people in the United States. And they say, how could the Supreme Court have gotten that out of the 9th and the 14th Amendment? And so, yeah, that might, some people might say they're
I wouldn't say that they themselves are above the law, but when they give their opinion, you know, as to whether people are going to be free or not.
that is a good point. So in a
So-
way, it's like they're committing a crime, but it's not an actual crime.
So you're basically saying that they sometimes bend the law to
Oh,
benefit
whoa.
themselves.
Yeah.
or to advance a certain ideology or policy.
The English Bill of Rights. Drew up by Parliament in 1689, the English Bill of Rights were a list of provisions that William and Mary of Orange had to agree on that would prevent the abuse of power by them and future monarchs. It, one, prohibited a standing army during peacetime unless Parliament agrees, required parliamentary elections be free, and guarantees right to fair trial, freedom from excessive bail, and from cruel and unusual punishment.
Where do we see those types of things, those that you mentioned there in the English Bill of Rights? Do we see any of those ideas or things in our own current Constitution? Where do we see that? Could you identify that, especially since this ties in with last chapter, chapter 20, right?
The fair trial one. First Amendment.
I think so.
Yeah. Within it's just those ideas are outlined in our Constitution as a whole, and then in the 10 Amendments and our Bill of Rights. It all kind of derives from the English Bill of Rights and then goes back to the Magna Carta. Like, it's just the main foundation of what our documents that we have today.
Are you asking what are they?
The Eighth Amendment also states
Eighth Amendment says what, Jesus?
it forbids cruel and unusual punishment.
Very good. Nice.
Have you seen that commercial, Sherwood Tax, where they're like doing Boston Tea Party and then Boston, the British
Well, actually, Joe, you're getting ahead of this because we're going to talk about the Sons of Liberty, right, guys? You're going to talk about the Sons of Liberty pretty shortly here. Paul Revere, Sam Adams, John Hancock.
The English colonies. The first colonies, described as the 13 schools of government, were established over 125 years, with the first one being Virginia in 1607 and the last one being Georgia in 1733. Each colony had shown its own character. Virginia was organized as a commercial venture. Massachusetts was for those in search of religious and personal freedom, and Georgia was a sanctuary for debtors. The colonies were established based on a charter, which is a written grant of authority from the king.
Royal colonies. The royal colonies included New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and were subject to the direct control of the crown. Here, the governors and councils were appointed by the king. The governors' council became the upper house of the colonial legislature, and the lower house of the bicameral were elected by certain property owners. A bicameral is a legislative body composed by two chambers.
As opposed to a...
Unicameral.
The proprietary colonies. Proprietary colonies were a place organized by a proprietor who were made up of Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. The government of these colonies were similar to that of royal colonies, though Pennsylvania differed in that it was a unicameral body, meaning a single-chambered legislative body.
Charter colonies. Chartered in 1662 and 1663, Connecticut and Rhode Island were largely self-governing. Governors here were not elected by a higher official, but by white male property owners, but needed the king's approval. Laws made in these colonies did not need the king's approval and could not be vetoed by the governor.
So just out of curiosity, you three, let's take it to a higher level here, use a little critical thinking and analysis. Based off of your presentation of the understanding of these three types of colonies and the map you showed, would you be more inclined to, if you had your druthers, to live in a royal, a proprietary, or a charter colony, and then tell us why you would select that particular one?
I think more a charter colony, because I feel that within the charter colony, or not the, why did I say charter? I don't feel a charter colony because it's only, people are only getting appointed by white, or people are only getting appointed by voters who are white men who own land, and those are the people that have the say-so in it. Where, I think that's what I had maybe. Go back. Whereas in in a proprietary colony, you only have one body making a decision, so it's not as like varied. Like there's no differentiated opinions as to where in royal colonies there's a bicameral body, so you're getting more, yeah, like you said, more freedom, but more.
But I would have to say a charter colony, because here the governors are not elected by a higher official like a king or anything. So some of the power does rest with us, though not all of us. Well, some of them. Even though it was restricted to white male property owners, but it still gave us some say in who was running.
You know, Octavio, I would have to say that I agree with you, because those other two colonies, basically the king has a more direct hand. And I noticed this, Sarah was a little upset by the fact that only a certain segment of the population could vote. However, for that time, that was pretty radical.
Yeah.
To have anybody at all be able to have any say in self-rule other than the monarch was radical. So you're kind of looking back in history and you're saying, well, there's not full enfranchisement, there's not full suffrage. True, based on our standards, that would be pretty limited.
But back then it
But
was more.
by that time, that was like crazy. You mean people can create their own legislature? They can vote on their own laws? I mean, that was these charter colonies were some of the rebel colonies that helped foment this desire to be self-ruled, to break away from Great Britain.
Are there any final questions?
That's it?
17 slides.
Before we start section 2.
Do I stop it now?
Yeah, stop it.